What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. I'm excited to bring you my full review of the Trogon. Let's get into it. What we'll be doing today is going through knife specifications. We'll do some size comparisons to help you get an idea just how big or small the knife is. We'll do some thickness profile comparisons as part of that as well. Then I'll jump into my thoughts and impressions. Let's go ahead and kick it off with the knife specs. The Trogon has a 3.2 inch 20 CV blade, 4.57 inch titanium handles for an overall length of 7.77 inches, claimed weight coming in at 4.5 ounces. Let's grab the scale and check that weight real quick. So coming in exactly at 4.5 ounces as advertised. Let me move the scale out the way. We'll go ahead and run through some quick size comparisons for everyone that is curious about the Trogon. Let's go ahead and kick it off with the Demco AD 20.5 and the Spyderco Shaman. So lining them up at the pivot, you can tell the Trogon a little bit bigger than the Demco, just a little, and a little bit smaller than that Shaman. Let me move these two out of the way, and we'll bring in the Benchmade bug out for another size reference. And we'll go ahead and grab the SIG K320 made by Hogue. And you can see just a little bit smaller than the Hogue and just a little bit bigger than the Benchmade. Last two comparisons I'm going to bring out for my budgety friends. The Elementum 2 button lock, and we'll move the SIG out of the way and bring out the Civivi Praxis. So a couple of the younger brothers, or more budget-friendly brothers, whatever you want to call it. You can see the Trogon is landing somewhere in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and move the two budget knives out of the way, hanging onto the button lock, Elementum 2 button lock, and doing some thickness profile comparisons. So you can see here the Elementum 2 button lock is just a hair thicker. Let me switch hands for this too. We'll go ahead and use the Benchmade bug out so you can get a really thin comparison up here. And then the last knife that we'll do for the thickness profile is going to be the Shaman. So you can see with the contoured scales, the Shaman and the Trogon are sitting about even. All right, all those done, let's jump into my thoughts and impressions of this knife. So first we're going to start with the Ergos on this knife. Very comfortable in hand, a little thin back here for larger hands. I end up kind of grabbing onto my meat because there's just not quite enough for me to grab onto. I kind of wish the thickness would have carried from this landing pad, just dropping down ever so slightly out here. As I've played around with the knife, or handled the knife, I shouldn't say played around, but as I've handled it, I wish that thickness was here, because then it's very comfortable with that much thickness, which it would have been a very, very thick knife. But I think carrying this thickness all the way throughout the knife with a little bit of a cutout, if I can put my hand there, I think that would have been a little bit better than this for me. Having said that, what does help save this knife a little bit for me is the contouring and the micro milling that is on here. Very grippy without being overly aggressive, so it goes in and out of the pocket easily. They even matched it up on the pocket clip, and you feel that when you're holding it in hand, you're laying all across here. So you feel the ribbing and the grip that's there for your fingers. Really nice. The other thing that I like while we're talking about the handles, I love that they polished to accent some of the handle itself. It's a really nice touch. And because it's like this black wash, stone washed anodizing that's all throughout the handle, where they did polish it for that blue to shine through, it looks really good. You have a matching back spacer with a matching lanyard barrel for the polished hardware, and then a very clean front, just a couple really small speed holes, and you have the one piece of hardware that matches the thumb stud, so you got a lot of balance here. The milling even carries to the inside of the handle, so you actually have that ribbing there to grab onto, which is kind of good because access to the lock bar is very tight. The lines are even through, so you don't have any lip whatsoever. You just have the chamfering where it's knocked down on the inside of both handles in order to get to it. It's much more comfortable to come in and lift up on it, or to actually just put the thumb on top of the lock bar and slide it over. You have ceramic bearings on phosphor bronze washers, or caged ceramic bearings on the phosphor bronze washer, which leads to very smooth, glassy action. It is still locked up nice and solid since I've gotten it. No lock rock, no side to side play. You have a nice 30 to 40% lockup going on the back of the blade. And again, it has really gotten smooth since I've had it. It almost just requires just 2 shakes to send it home. If you give it just a little bit of love, you can get it there, but you don't really need to hit it hard. Thumb stud placement is perfect. In a great spot. They did a good job putting these to where you can get right on them and launch them. I think the thumb studs are the proper size, and they have nice tall ribbing on them for you to access for the thumb flick and for the reverse flick. Now let's talk about the blade. You have some jimping on the back here, so when you're choked back, you're in a perfect spot for that if you need to do any type of puncture task. And then where it's most comfortable for me is the landing pad here, because it adds some thickness. My thumb lands right beside the thumb stud, and I'm right on top of that beautiful hollow grind. Really thin. Doesn't go super deep, but it doesn't need to. It cuts through and slices through the materials really nicely. You have a cute point out here for you when you need it for any puncture task. It is a little bit of a thicker grind, but it's still pretty thin out here on the tip. Even though it is thicker than the hollow grind, it's still a thin flat grind. Nice swedge here too, reducing the drag on this knife. All in all, this is a pretty decent build. I like a lot about it. Unfortunately for me, having the larger hands, it is a little bit of a pass. If you have anything in an XL, it's just a little too thin. I think, again, if they could have just added just a touch of thickness, on this handle, it would have been that much better for me. I was really excited when I first got it, but after handling it a few times, I really just could not continue to use it comfortably. It was just too thin. My hands completely wrapped around it. My fingertips are poking into my hand, so I just have too much hand gripping onto the knife itself. But outside of that, I think large or lower hands, you're really going to like this. It's a nice size, just under 8 inches at 7.77. It's a great size for EDC. 4.5 ounces for a full titanium knife is not that heavy. It carries very well. You get a lot of blade and cutting edge. So those medium hand folks out there, medium to large hand folks, you're probably really going to dig on this. And the finishing touches on this knife, is really flexing on this one, and they've been doing it for a little while here. End of 2021, end of 2022, beginning of 2023. Their build quality to me is rivaling that of what you see coming out of Bestech and even Riot. Now, Riot has the better heat treat, because the heat treat on this blade for that 20 CV blade is 59 to 61, which it's fine. It's going to be a tough steel. It's just not going to hold an edge for a very long time compared to 20 CV that's treated 61 to 63, right in that optimal range for 20 CV. This is going to be really good, though. I don't want to make it seem like because they're doing it at the lower end of the spectrum that it's not going to be good. It's just if you happen to get one that fell in that 59 range, you may notice that the edge doesn't hold a wicked sharp edge for as long. It might not be as slicey, but you're still going to get a pretty good working edge. You're going to get really good toughness out of it. So that is something that I think you want to take into consideration depending on how you're going to use this knife. But this is intended for everyday carry, right? Let's be real. You're going to open some boxes, you're going to break down some cardboard, cut some rope, you're going to cut some string, just typical everyday carry task. And I think for that, this is going to be just fine. Now, the last thing that I do want to talk about the Trogon is the fact that it's coming in at $292.75, which is a little bit on the high end of the spectrum. And I did get that price from Blade HQ, I think it was. It might have been Wii, but I thought I looked it up on Blade HQ. So you're talking nearly $300 for a Wii. Not that it's not worth it, but I did want to point that out because there's quite a few options out there for you. So for USA made option around this price point, the first one I'm going to make is going to be the ProTech Mordax. It is a more straight back drop point. It does drop a little bit out towards the tip, but it's more straight, so it has more belly. So the blade might not be as good as the Tonto because you do have the lower tip for the utility cuts, but I was looking in this size point, and the button lock is going to make this a little bit more fidgety, a little bit easier to access for the larger hand at this size, and you're getting it for around $200 to $230, so you're saving a little bit of money, but it is aluminum instead of titanium, but you are getting magnet cut steel on your ProTech Mordax, and I did send this out to BGM for a regrind for, I think it was $60, and I'm still coming in right at the price point of the Trogon, but I'm getting a properly heat-treated magnet cut steel that has a really thin hollow ground on there. So just something I wanted to throw out there as a for instance. But for around $230 you can get a Spyderco Shaman, and there's a lot of different scale options out there. Typically you can get skinny scales from Applied Weapons Tech that are going to be aluminum. You can get them for around 80 bucks. It'll put you a little bit over the price that you're paying for the Wii, but you're getting skinny scales, which I think the skinny scales in this instance, because they are just a little bit thicker, as you can see they're laying down here. If the Trogon would have come out with that thickness, to me, I think that would have been the sweet spot. But you're going to get a better heat treat on your steel from Spyderco, though you may need to do a little bit of tweaking depending on who assembled it for Spyderco. I've had to do a couple tweaks on a couple recently, and then there's been other ones that have come from the factory that are just absolutely perfect with no issues whatsoever. So it is a little bit hit or miss. The other thing too, you can get a Taiwan titanium variant for about $300, which is close to this price point if you're looking at the Shark Lock, which is going to be a little bit thicker in the handle, going to have a little bit of a stronger lock, also ambidextrous, and it's going to get your fingers out of the blade path when you use the Shark Lock. The last couple of recommendations that I'm going to make here are going to be when you're looking at Vero Engineering, or you're looking at EMP EDC. They're going to take you a little bit over that $300 price range for a boutique knife, but you're getting it from Best Tech. So you're going to get a little bit better heat treat, and you're going to have multiple options if you're looking at Vero, and EMP EDC is building up their library as well. And it seems like they have come up with a drop schedule that seems to be a little bit nicer too. Now for my budget recommendations for alternatives, I'm going to recommend the Devo Mash because I really like that one. I think that's a great size, great handle thickness, hollow ground blade. Or you can look at anything from Kungwu that tickles your fancy. If you like a drop point, if you like a sheep's foot, they have a bunch of options. They're doing really good heat treats, and their knives are usually running around $200 as well. So all the alternative recommendations for you folks out there. Again, if you like the look of this, it's easy to recommend because we did a fantastic job with the build. Heat treat's okay, lock bar access is okay. If you have larger hands, I think if you had a smaller hand it'd be okay, and I also think the Ergos would be okay if you had a smaller hand. Overall, I very much enjoyed the knife, but I can tell you for me it is not going to be staying in my collection. I am probably going to be moving it on after this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks to everyone out there that regularly leaves likes, comments, and is subscribed. I appreciate all the support. You guys rock. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.